Throughout my life, there are periods where I do have out of body experiences. I was very, very young and I knew I had the abilities. And then going to the sun, being, just like, flying up to the sun. And it was just, so spectacular. I said that Terry Anderson was in the Bekaa Valley, and they didn't believe me. Terrorists would never put the hostages in the Bekaa Valley, but they did. And I've had UFO experiences. I've had two.
Oh, have you?
And I think the UFOs were here for a long, long time. I think they were here before Adam and Eve.
Woo! Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. Guess what? I've got a treat for you. We've got Angela Ford. If you don't know, she was a psychic spy for the US military and government agencies back in the 80s and 90s. She was doing, chemical weapons and locating missing people in Lebanon and all of those things, but as an employee. Right? So super excited to speak to her. She was on both the Chris Ramsey and Sean Ryan podcast last year, notching up millions of views. And at the same time, we've just hit 7,000. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. So please continue to like, subscribe, share. Everything you do helps me get more guests on like Angela and helps to just increase the visibility of what we're doing. Okay, so just internally thankful to all of you, and it's a treat. Enjoy it.
Angela, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the Out of Body Stories podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you. I've been, excited for weeks since I knew it was going to happen. So I just want you to know that. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Fantastic. So I just want to start, if that's okay, before anything else, with your childhood, because I think when I've seen you on a few different podcasts now, whether it be, Chris Ramsey's Area 52, but also the Sean Ryan one, and you talked a little bit when you touched on your out of body experiences. So I just want to go back to then, when you were a child, and maybe start with your earliest memory of you being out of your body, if that's okay, and just, how that all started.
I was very young. I mean, it was before I was 6 years old. I might have been 5 years old, 4 years old, but I do remember leaving my body and floating and, going out the window, flying out the window. Very young. I was very, very young, and I knew I had the abilities. And then as I got a little bit older, they happened. And then, by the time you get in school and you're getting a little bit older and you're getting acclimated to, I guess, structure or whatever you need to do in life, they leave. But in and out of my life, throughout my life, there are periods where I do have out-of-body experiences. Now, I have never been able to control my out-of-body experiences. Some people say they can. Some people say they do. I've never been able to control mine, but I have tried to control mine. I've tried to will myself out at certain times. So it's beyond me. I don't know why it happens at a certain time and why it doesn't. So, but it doesn't scare me. It doesn't bother me. I enjoy them. And I guess there's not just much to say. You can gather information. You can just enjoy the moment. You get the feeling of flying. It makes you happy. It makes you peaceful. There are times whenever, you can go to places and look around, receive impressions. So it happens. I think sometimes it happens when I'm not so burdened in my life. When you're a child, everything's easy. You're free. You're not thinking of much. So it happens naturally. I can remember there was a time whenever I was in college, it seemed like I would have out-of-body experiences during breaks in school, like a long summer break, because I wasn't, I had nothing on my mind. School was over, we had a break. And I can remember during my late 20s, I didn't have much responsibility and life was a little simple, so I had them then. So I think, it's sort of like I had the freedom, not thinking of everyday life. So I think that kind of helps induce it.
Okay. And when you were younger, did you ever share this with anybody?
My mother, but somehow I knew at some level. You don't talk about it. And I don't know how I knew, but I just knew you do not talk about this.
And when sort of sharing this with your mum, were you aware that anybody else in the family, say her or anyone else, was having
No,
sort
no,
of
my sister, I had a sister, my twin, she was doing the same thing as me.
your
So we would
twin?
yeah, so she would tell my mother. Yeah, we would tell my mother.
Wow. And did you talk about it with your was it an identical
Oh,
twin or
sure. My
oh,
sister knew.
wow.
We told my mother. Now my mother but my mother, we didn't realize it at the time, but my mother was very psychic. My mother was always interested in the paranormal. We grew up with, she would buy books. She would buy, paraphernalia. She bought an encyclopedia all full of ESP. So my mother was into it. So she never told us to be quiet and not talk about it because she was just like, tell me more because she was interested in it. She was interested in Edgar Casey, Jeannie Dixon, just different things.
Okay, got it. And with your sister, did you ever have any shared experiences at all or anything? No, okay. Okay, that's super interesting. And when did you recognize them as being out of body experiences? Was
As
this
soon as I
later
had
on?
'em. As soon as I had 'em. As soon as I
Okay,
did. Even that young of an age, I knew exactly what was going on.
you knew what was going on. Okay, and did you ever have conversations with anybody within did you meet like entities, guides, or attach it to your psychic abilities?
I met a woman one time. She was beautiful. She was a woman. I remember going to the sun, being, just like, flying up to the sun, and it was just, so spectacular. And a woman, but mostly now once I went out of body, sometimes I could will myself where to go. Um some so sometimes maybe I would, go to a town where I wanted to go and maybe see it. But I don't think it was just it was just the whole pleasant feeling of just flying or being out
Okay,
of body.
okay. And did you at any point attach this to your psychic ability? Did you find that they both just developed hand in hand?
No, because the out of bodies I never had control out of my out of bodies. I knew I was going out of body, that there was nothing I could do about it. And I knew not to talk about it. Okay, now my psychic abilities, now because of the out of body, at a very young age, I was always interested in the paranormal. That made me very interested in the paranormal. And with my mother buying the books and the material laying around the house as a teenager and as a kid growing up, it was there for me. So, I could read a little bit, study. I don't think that, I can remember having dreams coming true, or that was precognition, or having high intuition, but I didn't look at myself as being psychic. I just think that these things happen. Once I became 29, 30 years old, when my father passed away, my mother gave me a book. Um, it was a book by Ruth Montgomery. It was called A World Beyond. My mother told me to read the book. She said, "It will help you understand your father's death." And I read it. And it was at that time that I started automatic writing or spirit writing. Ruth Montgomery was a channelist and she wrote books through her guides. And when I put the book down after I read it, I said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see if I can do automatic writing. And I was able to. So I would say at that point, at 29 or 30 years old, then I felt like I could go into I started my development to be a psychic.
Right. Got it. Got it. Okay, so so precognition, can't say it. Precognitive
Mhm.
dreams, sorry. Those happened hand in hand. So it happened since you were a young age, you were able to see things before they happened.
Things. It wasn't all the time, and it was
Yeah.
simple stuff. like
Okay.
who was gonna come visit tomorrow or who you were gonna it was nothing, it wasn't earth-shattering.
Okay.
Somebody would call and say, "Hey, I know you were gonna call," or I stopped by.
Okay. And yeah, so like you say, up until age 29, 30, that's when things started to develop. And can you maybe take us through that development and what that felt like and how, at what point you realized, okay, there's something here.
Well, when I read the Ruth Montgomery book, it was a channeler. She channeled through spirit on the typewriter, but she also did automatic writing. So, when I put down the book, I was living with my sister in the apartment. I said, "I'm gonna try this automatic writing." And I did. I got a spirit guide, and he was telling me a lot what goes over on the other side whenever you pass over. And he was telling me about my relatives. And my sister wanted to try it, so she tried it, and she was able to pick up a lot of information on my mother's relatives, on people that she grew up with as a little girl, and it would have been people that we would not have known. And so we were channeling. We were channeling through, I guess, spirit and what goes on over there, and my
And what did it
sister
feel like?
it
How did
felt
it feel?
natural, it felt normal, I wanted to know I mean, I was absorbing. It felt natural, I wasn't in fear. I wasn't in fear. I had wanted it. I accepted it. A lot of people that come to me that when they start opening up and have these abilities, they're in fear. They don't know if they're allowed to have them. There's a lot that they go through that you have to work through. The decision is up to, I say the decision is up to you. Either you want this or you don't want it. If you don't want it, you don't have to have it. So I think my father's death probably was traumatic. So anytime somebody has a traumatic event, it opens up the chakras. It can open up the chakras. So it could be a death, a divorce, a large lump sum of money. It could be a car accident, but something happens that it just starts opening up the chakras, or people start seeking, or they want to know, well, what else is other than this earth life. So I probably was at that stage after my father's death. So my sister was taking an astrology class at the time, and her professor, her teacher, a woman, knew that we were doing automatic writing, and we were doing it about a month. And then the lady said, she said, "You and your sister should go meet with Fred Mansbridge. He's a psychic. He has the Mansbridge Institute in Alexandria, Virginia, and go meet with him." She said, "You need to have a better understanding of what's going on with you." So I did go to Fred Mansbridge, and I enrolled in some of his classes, and a lot of them were like spiritual classes and how to give readings and tarot cards. So that I learned things through that too. So I guess I started my development there.
Yeah, okay. And when it came to, so for example, when you were automatic writing, would you go into a trance-like state or was it
It's
okay, you were
I,
conscious?
I was conscious of what I was doing. It's not trans channeling. That's a whole different. Something totally different. I can talk to you and channel and have a cup of coffee.
Brilliant. Multitasking. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. And so then after that point, like take us from that journey and the types of things that you experienced from that point on and actually maybe when Stargate comes in because was this around the same time that you were with this FBI?
No, no, no.
Oh,
This was back in 1984, 82,
okay.
82,
Okay.
83, 1983.
Okay.
Because my father died in 1982. It was 9 months after my father died that I'd started the automatic writing. My mother had sent me the book. She was taking an ESP class in Pennsylvania. And she'd come and she said, "Read this book." So I would say 1983, I was out of the FBI and I was working for Army intelligence.
Okay.
Now,
Brilliant.
um, I did not know it at the time, but because because the intelligence world has different programs and they're compartmented. So something could be going on that you know absolutely nothing about. You have to be read on. So I was working for Army intelligence, and apparently there was a general that came on military rotate. The commander of the intelligence army command would be there, 3, 4 years, then he would leave, then somebody else would come in, and then they would leave. Well, the man that came in, and the army intelligence had remote viewers since 1976. So whoever became the commander or the general of the Army Intelligence Command, they inherited the remote viewers. And the remote viewers worked in a very remote location in Fort Meade, Maryland. I was down in Arlington, Virginia, near the Pentagon in the city. Now, I did not know of this. They had psychics because it was a read-on program only. I don't know how. There was a General Stubblebine that came from the Army training school, and he became the commander or the general, the overall seer of the Army Intelligence Agency. This guy was very interested in ESP. Whenever he taught military officers, he wanted them to use their intuition. He called it human potential. He wanted them to do different things. He would bend spoons. He was a spoon bender. And he had a friend, Colonel John Alexander, and Colonel Alexander would walk on fire. And if you ever seen the movie Men Who Stare at Ghosts, this was them. This was them. So I guess when General Stubblebine came to the unit to be, there were the remote viewers doing their thing, but he wanted to extend this knowledge to anybody. You don't have to be a remote viewer. He wanted to extend programs to all his employees, whether you didn't have to be a remote viewer, but do something, think out of the box. He's looking for extraordinary people. He's trying to show human potential, be the best that you can be. Now, what happened with him was he started to take people to the Monroe Institute, which was close to Virginia. You could board the bus on a Friday evening and come back on a Sunday evening, and whoever was interested could sign up and go to the Monroe Institute for the weekend. So, of course, it was in Monroe Institute is all about out of body. So I signed up for it, but then I got kicked off the list because some military colonel was coming in from Hawaii because he wanted to go. So I was the last name on the list, and they said, we can't take you because Colonel so-and-so's coming in. And I said, okay. So the second time, I was last on the list, and I got kicked off again because somebody else came in that, I was a female civilian, low rank. They're going to give higher ranking people the opportunity. So that was the second time I was cut off the list. Now I was supposed to go a third time, and I went in, and the woman she said, this isn't fair to you. She said, if you want me to, I'll go fight so you can go this time. And I looked at the list, and there were 2 people on the list that I worked with, and I didn't want to be with them. And I said, no, I'll wait till next time. So I never did get to the Monroe Institute, but that was okay. But because of that, learning about people could go to the Monroe Institute, I had learned that there were using psychics up at Fort Meade, which completely shocked me. Oh, I said, well, I said, I would love to be involved in that. Well, they said, well, the general, he likes to meet with people who's ever interested. So I met with him. And this was in 1984. This would have been around 1984 because I talked to him, but he was retiring. So I thought, well, there went mine. He was retiring because his boss was a general that served at the Pentagon on the Joint Chief of Staff. and his boss was the head of intelligence for the whole military. And the general who was they call it the J2, the Joint Chief of Staff, supported remote viewing, supported the program, and supported what General Stubblebine was doing, but he left. This man left. And they put in somebody else, and the person that who was now the J2 sitting at the Pentagon, General Stubblebine's boss, didn't want anything to do with this. He was hindering General Stubblebine, so General Stubblebine was like, the heck with it, I'll just retire. And this was in 1984. So General Stubblebine retired. So I thought, well, there went my ability, or there went my chance. So the remote viewers were run by the Army. Now, there was the Defense Intelligence Agency, that there was a man by the name of Dr. Jack Verona, who was doing research into parapsychology phenomena. And he was giving out contracts to Stanford Research Institute, who actually termed the word remote viewing. We had Princeton in New Jersey. There was the Duke University, Ryan University in North Carolina. And I believe he was a physicist, but he was a scientist. And, the Soviets were big into being psychics. There were, there was a foreign assessment going on where we had analysts looking at reports, finding out what the Soviets were doing in the parapsychology world. There were scientific journals that we were getting from the Soviet Union that could be translated by interpreters. So there was a huge effort by the Soviets. They were using this, and the Soviets didn't have a problem using it because their culture is based on shamanism. So to them, it was very natural to use this. It was more difficult for the United States to keep their program because we're Christian based, and it's the work of the devil. That some people look at it as the work of the devil. So Dr. Verona was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And the Defense Intelligence Agency, if they considered it a sister agency to the CIA. The CIA used civilians to spy. The Defense Intelligence Agency used military people to spy. And I was a civilian, so I supported the military. So when General Stubblebine went to retire, and this man, the big boss, the big general at the Pentagon said, stop and desist, well, then all remote viewing operations stopped. And we had the remote viewers sitting at Fort Meade. And from what I gathered, they were sitting around waiting to go to their next assignment. So, but Dr. Verona stepped in and went to Congress and said, don't close down the remote viewers. Just transfer them from Army intelligence and transfer them to the Defense Intelligence Agency. He would take responsibility for them. And it took about a year. 1985 probably took that year to get everything transferred. And I believe Al Gore, Vice President Al Gore, was not vice president yet. I don't think. And he wrote the congressional language for us.
Okay, wow.
And that's how, so in 1986, the remote viewers were able to stay. They did not have to leave Fort Meade. They probably didn't do anything in 1985. They probably couldn't do anything operationally. So it was a big transfer. So in January 1986, I got a call from Fort Meade. Somebody came down and talked to me. And by July, I was in the program, July 1986. And it took that much time probably to interview me and to get clearances transferred. And so it was General Stubblebine that probably said, bring her in.
Yeah. Got it. And by that point, you'd been working on, with the automatic.
Yeah, I was with the Fred Mansbridge Institute working on it. I had begun doing readings. My sister was working. She would send people that she worked for to my house, and people would come
Okay.
in, but I wasn't even charging people at the time. I was kind of using them as guinea pigs. But eventually it did turn into money because I read two women that they liked what I did. And so every Friday night when I would come home from work, they'd wait for me and they'd bring people in and I would read them and then they could pay
Okay.
me. That's how I
And
got started.
and by that point, like, so obviously you've done the automatic writing. How did that evolve? How did your psychic abilities evolve over that period of time? And what were you using? Did you have a particular process that
I
you
was
were
just automatic
following?
writing. I was going to Fred Mann's. Oh yeah, I think I learned tarot during that time, how to do tarot cards.
Okay.
And I was going to Fred Mann's, but we were taking all kind of classes, how to read auras, numerology, anything he would teach. He had books he wanted you to read, certain books to understand metaphysical principle, or the principles, the laws of the universe. So it was just, I was doing all of that. I was very much involved, I guess, in the spiritual side of things.
And so you were a sponge, like was it all coming naturally to you as you were kind of like
But again, yeah, I accepted it and I wanted it. So I just kept going. I just kept going.
okay. And was there obviously because you were taking lots of different classes and you were going through all these, was there a particular discipline that even now that you like maybe came more naturally to you of
Not a-
automatic, right, straight away? That was the one
That was it.
that called you. And
I don't do psychokinesis. I can't move objects. I can get dreams sometime or impressions, but I'm an automatic writer. That's my hookup.
and when you do automatic writing, do you is it almost like, is there a will side of it where you put something out there and you get it back? Do you have to open anything? Like, how does it work?
Just put the pen to the paper and write.
Piece of paper and just go for it. Okay. Okay. Do you still automatic write to this day? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm
And
part
has
of it.
that process, has it honed even more? Is it more?
It comes in a lot quicker. I mean, when I first began, I would write real slow and I would have to read every word. And now it just, it's just, I'm like, what did they say here? What did the guide say? It's mental. When somebody performs a psychic feat, the information's there and it's mental. It's when someone's psychic, it's a mental ability. As
Okay.
far as like the tarot cards or the automatic writing, or the crystal ball, that's just a manifestation of the information.
Okay. Because I've got someone actually, a podcast that will be coming out. She's a dowser, a woman called Sue.
Yeah,
She was explaining to me that it'll be on the podcast. It's almost like you connect. You form a connection. So she was like, I've got my rods, but I don't need to use the rods. So she's got to a point where it can just
sure. Oh, sure. Like, in other words, I can put the pen down and maybe get one letter or word, and I know what
yeah.
it's, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so when you were was it Stargate, when you were obviously doing this for a living, was the process similar? Were you using automatic writing or were you using other
No, I was not allowed to use automatic writing. They told me it was a bad habit. The
okay.
military. Yeah, no, no, no. What happened was, about I was waiting for my clearance. I knew I had the job, and they had to pass my clearances from Army to Department of Army to the Defense Intelligence Agency. Now, that could take a short time or a long time. You just don't know. So I bought this book, and it was called The Silva Mind Control by Dr. Jose Silva. And in it, he teaches you how to meditate. You go down and, you turn on the TV, and then you can visualize. Like, if suppose I wanted to give you a reading, I could go, meditate, and I could turn on the TV and you would come up you would be my TV program, so I could scan your health and I could gather, how are you feeling? So I read that book and I did some tests or did some training on it. They give you exercises in the book. And I liked it. And I thought, oh, this is nice to have. Well, little did I know that when I walked into the psychic program, that was one of the methods they used. That's what Stanford used, and it was called extended remote viewing. So when I went into the program, this is military. They wear the suits, and they were men. And I walked in, and they said, "We know who you are, and we heard about the automatic writing." And they said, "But it's a bad habit. We don't want you to do that here. We're going to teach you the right way to be psychic." So working for the military and the FBI, I just didn't say anything, and I'm used to the culture. I said, "Okay, whatever you want, I'll do." So I was trained in the extended remote viewing, but there was also another method that they used. I got to move my cat. We're going to take a break here. He may come back. I try to put him in the closet, but anyway.
Sorry.
No, but there was another methodology that was used. It was called coordinate remote viewing. And this was based on a manual that Stanford Research put out to try to explain how one remote views. Stanford Research was under contract with the government, U.S. government. The Defense Intelligence Agency asked Stanford Research put something together that is technical in nature, that when they can take that to Congress to try to get money to support the program, because every time they would go to Congress and ask for money, they would be laughed at because it was psychic and all in psychics. And they met with people that didn't want it, but they felt if they could present it in a technical or scientific way, it would be easy. They wouldn't have the fight that they had. So there was a psychic named Ingo Swann that worked for Stanford Research, and he came up with coordinate remote viewing. Well, it was a manual. It explained things. It was step by step. In the military, military loved to train. So they had this manual, and they loved Ingo Swann. He was like a hero to them. So the military said, "This is remote viewing. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do. This is it." So when I came in with my channeling, they thought I was a witch. They thought it was woo-woo and that I needed to learn the right way. But because I was but there were already a lot of people doing coordinate remote viewing, and a lot of people were being trained in remote viewing. So they put me with extended remote viewing because hardly anybody was doing it, and the trainer in extended remote viewer needed to do something, so they gave him to me. So they gave him me. So we started working together. So I was trained in extended remote viewing, and they did not want to hear about
Automatic writing or
writing, channeling. They didn't want to hear any of that. So about a year and a half, and I did okay with that. I didn't mind it. I did it. And, they didn't. Now, about a year and a half after I was into the program, about 86, 87, 88, management changed. And new management came in, and their attitude was, there was a man that came in, and he was part of the program in the early years, 1976. When they were just using people on a part-time basis. Well, they brought him back in because they wanted to use him as the operations officer or something. And then he eventually took over the unit. And he said, "I don't care what you use." He said, I've been here during that whole coordinate remote viewing. And he said, "I really don't care what people use." And then as people at Stanford, there were two scientists were out, and we had a new man, Dr. Ed May, and Dr. Ed May, he didn't care about He said, I don't care if a psychic stands on their head. I want information. Your bottom line is you want information. What does it matter what methodology you're using? I was allowed at that time to do my channeling, to do my automatic writing. So I worked with my new boss, and we did. And we started working, and we found out we were good at locations, and we were doing hostages in Lebanon. I was good with health statuses. I was good at locating. So we were born game busters there, which really the military people tried to stop my information. I mean, they tried to stop it, but we were doing it. We were just finding hostages. We would write up reports late in the morning, bring them up to the Defense Intelligence Agency in the afternoon. It was about an hour away from Fort Meade, and that night, the analysts would bring the reports to the Israeli embassy, and then they would act on my information to try to go and to find, to see where I said the hostages were. And I said, and I was able, they were, when they came out, we were able to, later when they came out, we were able to confirm the health statuses that I said.
I think I've heard you, telling that story. I think it's fascinating. And so would you say there was a difference in results from you doing the extended remote viewing to doing the method that felt better for you, like the automatic writing method? Did you see
The automatic writing the automatic writing lended itself to personalities. It lended itself to personalities, and it lended itself to locational. Now, the big threat was the Soviet Union. It was the Cold War era. So a lot of the targets were in extended remote viewing. The targets were like buildings, like what's going on in that building. So when I did extended remote viewing, the targets were very conducive for extended remote viewing. When I started to do I couldn't do automatic writing on a target that was very conducive for extended remote viewing. But whenever you started looking at people, are their lives in danger? Where are they? What's going on? What are they feeling? What's the future? Automatic writing it was right into that. It went right into it, which they loved. They loved it.
So it's like almost like an emotional, there's like a difference between almost like
It's high pitched, yeah. And I think during that time, Gorbachev was coming into power. And he was trying to make friends with the West, and nobody trusted him. And I think at that time, the Eastern communist countries were very poor. People were starving, and he had to open up. In order for those Eastern countries to survive, Gorbachev had to open them up to the globe. And of course, the Western world didn't trust him, so I didn't even know who I was remote. They'd come in and they'd say, tell us about what's in this envelope. Tell us about the person in this envelope. And I said that he reads the Bible, which, nobody said anything, but that was indication that he was a good man. I don't know if he read the Bible or not, but the sign was that he was a good, he read the Bible. I said, he reads the Bible. And, I said that it was surprising that he got to be in the position that he was in, and I said that he was a good man. Well, what happened is that, I guess what I said, it was enough that at least, we could start knowing that you could start trusting him, or at least hear what he had to at least, policymakers could start listening to what he had to say. But we did find out later that when Gorbachev did come to power, he wasn't supposed to be the president of the Soviet Union. They had it geared for somebody else. The vote was supposed to go another way, but at the last minute, the vote went to him, and that's how he became president. Everybody was surprised.
Even when you were doing remote viewing or extended or automatic writing, you would also have like numbers, like standard coordinate remote viewing.
Oh,
there's a number attached to
yeah.
the...
That was a fake coordinate, I think, right?
Yeah. How does that work? Because
it's just the focus. No, they would just, no. I didn't do that. They would
Okay.
do the year. They would go, "Okay, this is target 1988 1. So
Right.
January 1st, if you." No, it's just the focus.
Okay. But how do you connect with that? How do they create the connection with that focus? Like, because you don't know who you're remote viewing, but you've got an address or you've got something that points to that. How does
Because
that?
you look at that's the focus. You just look at that. The intent, you put the intention.
Right. Okay.
I
Okay.
guess it's the intention.
Interesting. Yeah, because I guess in some ways, it's information. It's information and information is somewhere. And yeah. Okay. When it came to Stargate, was it mainly people? Would you also locate objects and another?
Sure. Yeah, I was good at finding things.
Okay. Okay.
I found Gaddafi's chemical. I mean, we think we found Gaddafi's chemicals. We weren't sure, but we were able to track it. It came out like highly probable. It was a good rating to get. But yeah, finding things. The automatic writing lent itself to people, accessing and describing people, future intentions. And it also lent itself to finding things and predictive. Extended remote viewing and the coordinate remote viewing, those were for stagnant targets. They were stagnant targets. It was a different type of remote viewing.
Okay. Okay.
It's like if you're going to write a piece of music, are you going to write one that's jazzy or are you going to write one that's classic?
Yeah. Do you still do some of the extended remote viewing? Is
Mhm.
this something that you still do? Yeah. Okay. And do you still feel like, in terms of your ability, because I think I've heard you say that it's hit and miss. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Do you think there are other elements that help or hinder, whether it be food or I don't know, the weather, or whether the moon is full? Do you
Yeah, they
think that
say if the
the
sunspots are high,
sunspots? Mm,
that will deter remote viewing, which I think it does.
okay.
I, I don't know. I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure, but um, I don't know. I'm older now, and I just want to do what I want to do, and so I don't worry about it as long as I'm getting results.
No, no, for sure, for sure. So you do, do you do this for people? Can anybody request to
I
work
do
with you?
readings. I do classes. I'm doing a lot of classes now. A lot of
Oh,
classes.
okay. You do classes as well. Do you do one-to-one, one-to-many?
Do I do what? I run my classes every 6 weeks. We do
Okay.
remote viewing 1, we do remote viewing 2. In
Oh,
the
okay.
remote viewing 1 are the training targets that we would train people on before they would do an operation. And then remote viewing 2, they're actually military operations.
Okay. Wow. So is this still being used then? Some of this stuff in the field,
That I
let's say.
No, not that I know of, but when
Okay.
people wanna do when they wanna learn a more advanced stage of remote viewing, the military targets are very conducive. It's makes it a little bit
Ah,
harder.
I see. I see what you mean now. Okay. Okay. And so, I mean, is this something I could sign up for? Where do I find this stuff?
The X, Twitter X.
Okay.
But I'll
Okay.
send you the information.
Please do. Yeah, I would love to learn a bit more about this. Okay. And in terms of your beliefs and in terms of like the way you see life, has that changed over the years since you've kind of like been working with stuff, especially in I guess a more, military or sort of work environment? How's that changed your view of reality and your view of the nature of reality?
You mean what, working for the military or
Yeah, like creating processes around this kind of stuff. Does it change the way you see life? Because you talked about the fact that your mum gave you a book and it kind of talked about
oh,
the other side and
yeah,
that
Ruth
kind of thing.
Montgomery, that was the book, Ruth
Yeah.
Montgomery, A World Beyond.
Has that changed since because sometimes when you work on something in a more sort of, I don't know, um,
Oh, no, I believe what she said in that book. I mean, the military did not change my spiritual beliefs or my I mean, if anything, they needed to get with it.
yeah. And
They
have you seen this new Spielberg, is it Disclosure Day?
No, keep getting emails on it, and I have not had the chance. I have been so busy. And what does it say? I have what does it say? I have to
No, I mean, it's a trailer. I won't spoil it, but it's just, in some ways, I'm like, what's going on? It's almost like, I guess things do have to hit popular culture at some point. But with everything that's been happening in Congress, with, the whistleblowers and everything, it's almost like Spielberg is making its imprint into popular culture. And I just wondered what it says about what's going on, UAPs and, all of this stuff. So I was asking just to see if you had any views on it.
No, I mean, I think if information's out, I think that's great. I think once the government acknowledged that, what do they call them now? UAPs? That
UAPs, yeah.
exist. I mean, they can't take it back, so it's in the open. So
Mm,
it's out there now. And how we're going to handle it? How fast does it? How fast does it travel? What does this all mean? That's taking place now,
yeah.
but at least it's out in the open.
And in terms of your personal beliefs, I'm not talking about anything related to intelligence, obviously, but your personal beliefs, does it relate to the other side? Do you think it's that in nature, to spiritual things? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we
And
go on.
sorry?
We go on.
We go on. Okay. 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 And what are your beliefs? What are your beliefs?
We go on. I mean, we just kind of lose this physical body, and then we're in a
Okay.
an etheric body. We meet with our karma family. Who we came in with. We'll come back, and we'll have to make things up and be different things. My mother could be my sister. I do believe that we have to. I think that, what do they say? We have to. We have to be evolved every time we come back. We try to do better. So I do believe in evolvement. I believe that we are met with others. I believe that once we're over there, we can still learn things. There's a hall of knowledge, or, like the library, we can learn things. I also feel if you don't like somebody on this life and you go over, you may not like them over there either. But you don't have to put up with them. And it doesn't take away anything. I mean, Jesus was Jesus. It doesn't take away anything as far as, what we have learned, I guess, raised, in the Christian world. It does, if anything, it enhances it. If anything, um, I do believe that there's life I believe in UFOs. I've had
Mhm.
UFO experiences. I've had two.
You. What sort of experiences have you had?
I just, one time when I was 12 or 13, we were kids. I was with a bunch of friends, I guess kids. We were playing baseball, and it was that dusk, the time between light and darkness. And we had to quit playing baseball because it was getting dark. And we were walking across the baseball field, and we could just see the UFO. We were screaming and screaming, and the people came out.
Do you think it's related to the other side? Do you think it's like interdimensional? Or do you think it's here on Earth?
I think it's both places.
Both places.
I think
Interesting.
it's interdimensional. Yeah. And I think the UFOs were here for a long, long time. I think they were here before Adam and Eve. I think that they, I guess too, whenever the bad angels came to earth, and remember they had a fight, and so God put all the bad angels on earth. Well, then those angels started to have sex with with humans. I think that the UFOs were here even before that time. And I think they were here even before Adam and Eve. But I feel like humans had to have had, when you look at the aliens, they have digits like we do. So I think we've been somewhere along the line, they wouldn't be surprised if humans were alien affected. I don't know. This is what I'm looking into now. This is my
I was
new,
going to say, have you remote viewed any of this stuff?
yeah, but no, I'm doing research on it. I'm doing.
Doing research. Okay. Okay. Ooh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff, I think, related to all of this. And do you think humanity's ready? If this is disclosure, do you think this humanity's ready for it?
I don't know. The thing that scares me is the technology. The technology is moving so fast. I'm not afraid of AI. It's just it's technology. I mean, technology is becoming like people. You've got consciousness in technology. Could the technology come over and, grab on, kill the consciousness? Then we lose our connection to the divinity. That's what's scary. We could actually be losing our connection to the divinity. And there are people that do want to study that God particle. What is the energy that makes up that God particle? And why do they want to study it? To
Yeah,
manipulate. I mean, there's a lot going out there.
there's
On
a
out
lot.
there.
There's a lot. Have you ever had any, whether it be through OBEs, out body experiences, or any other means, have you ever looked into past lives, your past lives?
Oh, sure, sure.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a sense of some of that?
I mean, have you ever been somewhere and say, "Oh my gosh, I've been here before"?
Okay. Yeah, have a connection to energy or to a person. I think.
I've had connect. There were two animals I felt like I knew I've been in past lives with.
Okay. Okay. And these animals yours or previous or just animals that you've come across, like you've
No,
energetically?
no, they're mine. They have
Okay.
two. One is a
Okay.
cat and one was a dog.
Okay.
I've had many animals, but there were two.
And what was that feeling? It was just like,
They were with me before. I had a lab, and I don't know what we were doing, if we were on the floor of the ground or on the ground, and it just came like, we've done this before. We've been here.
okay, okay. Like the impression kind of coming to you. Okay, interesting. And okay, and this is a question I've been seeing. So people talk about prison planet and, reincarnation, the sort of reincarnation cycle. Do you have any thoughts or views on any of that?
What's reincarnation prisons?
Or the prison planet, like that this is a reincarnation trap. And have you got any views on any?
Earth is a reincarnation trap.
Oh, I lost you for a sec, Angela. I think we're
That's
both
okay.
back.
Okay,
Yeah.
are you asking if Earth is a reincarnation trap?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they say, if you get evolved enough, you don't have to come back. That's what I heard.
Do you want to come back, Angela?
Love Earth. I love
Oh,
them. I,
I
I,
mean,
majestic. It's majestic.
it is.
But I mean, I feel Earth inside of me. I love it. I love Earth.
I know, agreed, agreed. When it comes to channeling as well, have you ever had any sort of like experiences with other entities that are
Well, when
not
I do my
human?
automatic writing, it's two entities.
Okay, like, but okay, not what should I say, like ETs or anything. So it's mainly like guides. Do you?
Guides, toy guides. Of course, when I do readings, people want to know about their relatives. They're coming through.
Yeah,
My relatives may come through sometimes.
as well.
ETs are different. It's different. It's a different hookup. It's a different energy.
Yeah.
It's just a different hookup. It's a different energy.
Okay. What's the wildest thing that you have brought through?
What do you mean? Like,
Either like automatic, like what's the or the like the wildest story, let's say, or like or yeah, bit of information.
you mean like about maybe a case or something?
Yeah, a case or a story or what's the most interesting or most like mind blowing thing?
Probably that one case I saw in Wyoming where they were looking for a customs agent that went bad, and they asked where he was, and I said he was in Level, Wyoming, and nobody believed me, but he was there.
He was there, and they found him off the back of that. Wow.
He was a customs agent that went rogue. I guess he got the money from the drug dealers, and then he ran with millions. And so he was, police, they don't like whenever their own go bad. So they asked us to look for him, and I said he was in Level, Wyoming, and nobody believed me. And then they came back, and they asked me again where he was 6 weeks later. And I said that he was moving west of Level, Wyoming, and I said he was in a hotel motel, and I described an Indian burial ground. Well, what happened was when Dr. Verona went to customs, Dr. Verona said, as we're, he's moving west of Level, Wyoming, and the customs man said, as we are speaking, we are apprehending Charles Jordan 100 miles west of Level, Wyoming. So this guy was on the 10 most wanted list. It was a TV program. It was an unclassified case. So we said, how did they find him? And they said there was a guard at the Yellowstone National Park that spotted him. So we just kind of left it, we kind of left it alone because we didn't think that we were happy that I was able to do something like that. It was one for the books. It was undeniable. I said he was where he was, and he was there. So that was good remote viewing. But as an agency, I guess we just didn't bother to take credit for it because they said a security guard found him. Well, this was in 1988. Now, because it was an unclassified case, the BBC got a hold of it, and they came to Maryland one year, and they researched what happened. And so they came back the following year and did a reenactment of the case. When they did a reenactment of the case, the customs people were there. And my boss, Dale Graff, said something to the effect. He said, boy, it's a shame we couldn't, it's a shame that our agency couldn't get credit for this. And the customs man said, are you crazy? It was because of you, because of me that they found him. And they said they didn't believe he was in Wyoming. But about 2 or 3 weeks after I said he was in Wyoming, he sent his mother a picture of himself to show her that he was okay. It was called Proof of Life, like here I am and I'm doing fine. Well, when she showed the picture to the FBI, in it was a car or a truck with Wyoming license plates. And then at that time, they knew when I said Level, Wyoming, they knew to concentrate on in that Level, Wyoming area. And what I was told is they were just sending pictures and pictures and pictures of him up in that area. And it's not a highly populated area. So it was a matter of, I think, 4 to 6 weeks after I said where he was, that's where he was.
And that's the thing, is that type of accuracy, and I'm not even talking about the, number of cases and whether they were right or wrong, but to get it pinpoint.
Yeah.
It's wild. I don't know how you can even
I don't know how I don't know
to explain that. Did you use automatic writing for that?
Yeah. I said, they go, where's Charles Jordan? I said, Lowell. I said, Lowell, Wyoming. And my boss said, there's a Lowell, Massachusetts, because he was born in that Lowell, Massachusetts. And I said, no, I'm getting the Wild West. It's Wyoming. I'm not getting, water or, East Coast. No, so he said, I never heard of that. Well, we don't have to know everything. I said, of course, we don't, we know everything. So we had a map. There was a book of maps. So he grabbed the book of maps and he said, well, there's a Level, Wyoming. And I said, close enough. Because I wasn't going to do it again. I said, that's close enough to say he's there. And that's where he was.
It's amazing. And that was the police.
It was for customs.
Sorry.
Customs.
So you would get lots of different departments or
We had customs, we had oh, yeah, the intelligence community, the intelligence agencies. We had CIA would task us, NSA,
Okay.
Defense Intelligence Agency. We worked many cases, we
Okay, I
were
see.
working North Korea, China, Russia, Soviet Union.
Okay, because I didn't realize I thought it was agnostic, like, but it was like literally across the board, any intelligence
Yeah,
agency.
any intelligence agency they could task us because we were a collection unit.
I
They
see.
felt they had a problem that we could help, which they always came to us as last resort. If nobody else could solve it, then they gave it to us, which in a way wasn't fair to us.
Yeah. So it's almost like somebody had to have an open mind as well to be like, okay, because or was it a case of once it got to a certain point, it would always come over to you?
No, not all the time, but there were. I know when we did the hostages in Lebanon, Lebanon was a very mountainous country, so you couldn't get imagery in there, you couldn't get you couldn't get anything in there. The only thing you could get was spies on the ground, but it was becoming so dangerous that President Clinton pulled the people out, so they had nothing. The intelligence community had no way to gain information in Lebanon, but yet the Hezbollah was holding, Western hostages. Terry Waite, Terry Anderson. It was us. I mean, they came to us, and one man said, he said, I don't think they're going to, he felt like we were not going to help him, but we did. And I found out, I said that Terry Anderson was in the Bekaa Valley, and they didn't believe me because they said that the hostages would never, the terrorists would never put the hostages in the Bekaa Valley, but they did. And I found out years later, in fact, not too long ago, that somebody had given me some feedback, which I didn't know, that at the time that they were putting them through. I just had a conversation with somebody, and they said, Angela, that the time I was remote viewing, they were putting them through the Bekaa Valley. And well, see, but I guess I just wasn't provided that feedback.
Yeah. Would you get feedback? You'd have to know,
Uh,
you'd have to wait until a case is closed or not closed.
we would give it to you. No, we would give them information. And they acted on it. Thank God they acted on it. But again, people's lives, the hostages' lives were in danger.
Yeah.
They didn't have anything else. So they were more than happy to get reports from us.
Okay.
And of course, things don't change every day, but they would act on information. And if something came back if something came back that was true, they would come back and say, oh,
Come
yeah,
back to you.
yeah.
But even if it wasn't, would they come back? Would you get that feedback to be able to like?
Well, they would not right away because, if you say something, it doesn't have to happen tomorrow. If it didn't happen, they didn't say anything. If they
Okay.
could confirm something, they confirmed right away. But what they would do is after maybe 3 or 4 months, they would write a huge report. And a lot of times, if something could not be confirmed, they would just say something not confirmed at this time, but you still leave it open. You can't say, oh, no, this didn't happen.
Yeah.
But they would do a list and say, yes, confirmed, or they say, well, not confirmed at this time.
How many cases would you work on in a day or a week or whatever?
No,
Okay. Wow. And would you work with other people on cases, or was always like to almost like, you know, five of you working on a case and almost seeing what the probability might be based on like a number of you?
yes, yeah, of course, of
Sometimes,
course.
yeah.
And
Okay.
that was hard too, because if everybody said the same thing, it made everybody happy. You would think they were right and we could all be wrong. And then you could have, 4 people saying one thing and one person saying another. Everybody's going to believe the 4 people, and then the one could be. I mean, it was hard. It was always
Yeah.
surprising, very
Interesting.
unpredictable.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's why you had to give all the information in.
Yeah. And did you work with Joe McMonagle?
No, he
Oh,
retired in 1984. I came in
okay.
1986.
Okay. Are you in touch with some of the people that you used to work with?
Joe. Oh, yeah, Joe.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
ex-boss, Dale Graff, and Ed May. I work with Ed May, Dr. May.
Okay. Wow. It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, these stories, I think, are just, yeah, absolutely incredible stories, because it's just, and that, in fact, this is one of the reasons I started this podcast, was seeing the declassified CIA files about a year or two ago. And I was like, ooh,
You know,
because
what's your background? Are you a journalist or?
no. I've worked in tech all my life, pretty
Oh,
much.
okay.
So I just like, working for, in some cases, corporate startups, that kind of thing. But the reason why, what prompted me to start this channel was, so 20 years ago, my brother gave me the book Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe. And after I read that book, I got up I'm into football, like to soccer, I guess. And I woke up, it was in Japan. I think the World Cup was in Japan, 2002. I woke up at my mum's place to watch a game, and it was 4 a.m. And I went back to sleep, and I could feel my arm going through my bed. And obviously I just read that book. So I was like, oh my God, it's happening. And that
Yeah.
prompted me. I was like, woo. And then my brother shared his stories about, so my brother's like proper scientist, has a PhD in biochemistry. And he was scientifically trying to have these experiences, and he would bring them on by waking up in the middle of the night. So what happened to me is like a similar thing, right? I was able to go back to sleep and just be aware maybe of that in-between state and go into it and get sleep paralysis and, that kind of thing. So I didn't do anything about it because I was in such a rational world. I was just going about my business with my work. And then about a year or two ago, so I think it might have been Chris Ramsey, actually. I think I saw one of his things about out of body experiences. It prompted it back again. And I was like, oh, let me look at this. And also this I don't know, this need to kind of reconnect with my intuitive side again. Because I knew when I was younger, I used to have like just the odd thing that, yeah, I was able to, like you were saying, sometimes in dreams, maybe see some future things, like little things. Obviously the out of body experiences, I don't know, just a more of a knowing. So I just thought, you know what, this might be a great way, just with this podcast, to start experimenting with it again. And yeah, that was my whole thing. So it was interesting when you were saying as well about Bob Monroe and your opportunity to go down to the Monroe Institute and all of that, and that connection to that. It was interesting to hear you talk about that. And I was going to ask you actually back then, if when you had that chance or that opportunity, when it came up, had you connected it back to your childhood? Did you know that?
Well, I knew I remember my out-of-body
Yeah,
experience as a kid.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you knew there was something to it by that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. No, I just knew that you know.
Yeah. No, but yeah, Angela, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, hearing your stories and talking to you firsthand. It's been brilliant. Really enjoyed.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah. And then maybe again, we can have another chat sometime in the future, maybe after Disclosure Day. Let's see what
I think
happens.
that I'm gonna have to watch that. Everybody's been emailing that.
Yeah. Yeah. After next year, when it actually gets released, and depending on what happens with Congress and whistleblowers, and if anything
Yeah.
happens next year, we can
Yeah, I'm
see,
gonna
we can
watch
comment
everybody sent I'm gonna watch that. So that's interesting.
for sure. Okay. So, Angela, thanks again. And yeah, let's speak soon.
Okay, and what's the weather like over there in Spain?
Do you know what? At the moment, it's quite warm, to be fair. It's warm for here, I should say. So it's maybe like, sort of, mid teens kind of thing. Yeah. And I'm going, obviously, I think I said to you, I'm going to London tomorrow. So it's going to be cold there for sure. But no, it's not too bad.
I enjoyed this very much.
Yeah, likewise.
Very good. Very good.
Thank
You're a
you.
good interviewer.
Thank you, Angela. Much appreciated. I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you've got a good voice.
Thank you.
I hope you liked that video as much as I enjoyed making it. As always, please like, subscribe, comment. What did you think? Please leave them in the comments below.